Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We are now at poem 382, For Death or Rather. The real line is for death or rather for the things toward by. Death comes up in 135 poems in the project of Emily Dickinson. We're already back to poems 288 and 303. Now our assumption is that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments as well as our preceding 281 poems. We just finished with 281, A Secret Told. Now, there is, in profound ways, there's always, it seems, a story, right? Emily actually once hid in the woods, apparently, to avoid being questioned by her neighbors. And so, much like the previous poem about secrets, here the question is going to be, what is gained, what is lost through the process of death? Hey, guys, I want you to pay attention to the economic language and the gifts that death will provide. This is how she says it. For death, or rather for the things twould buy, this put away life's opportunity. The things that death will buy are room, escape from circumstances, and a name. With gifts of life, how death's gifts may compare, we know not, for the rates lie here. And again, notice her use of economics language all the way through this little poem. Now, just to remind, Emily on her tombstone, the words are called back. And it's clear that Emily gave a lot of thought to the question of death. What is it that's gained? What is it that's lost in death? Notice she'll begin by saying for death, or rather, for the things twould buy. Notice we'll see buy here 2 times. This put away life's opportunities. In other words, okay, death is the end of the opportunities for life. The things that death will buy, that is to say, no question, there are things that one must give up. But what is it that one gains with the process of death? Well, she'll say, first of all, it's room. Right, a coffin, if you will, right? Escape from circumstance. Think about back to poem 77 with the use of the word escape. Escape from circumstances. And then, finally, a name. You're right, you will gain possibly a name. That is to say, maybe fame, maybe recognition. Of course, this takes us back to 288 in our study. I'm nobody, who are you? Are you nobody too? Then there's a pair of us. Don't tell, they'll advertise, you know. How dreary to be somebody. How public like a frog to tell one's name the livelong June to an admiring bog. This idea of the name, and as we commented when we did that poem, the influence, of course, of Homer's Odyssey and, of course, Odysseus telling Polyphemus the Cyclops, I'm nobody. Then she'll finish with gifts of life. So we've got gifts of death, and then we've got gifts of life. With gifts of life, how death's gifts may compare. Again, we're back to Emily loving to compare. We know not. Now, when we get to poem 480, we're going to see this phrase one other time. We know not. And of course, readers of Emily's stuff would understand that there's a biblical Christ reference here. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, right? We know not, for the rates lie here. Again, back to the economic language. In other words, while we're alive, and this is, I think, the point, at 2a, while we're alive, it isn't always clear what life is worth. And of course, when we're dead, it isn't always clear what death is worth. It's never clear as to what degree we can think of death as a gift. At 2b, I love the economic language. At 3a, of course, the poem 288 does come to mind here. I'm nobody, who are you? I think Dante is to some degree standing behind a poem like this as well, guys. His Divine Commedia. We've given full lectures at LearnStrong.net. But think about how, in some ways, what Dante's trying to come to terms with is, what are the gifts of life and what are the gifts of afterlife or death, right? Post-death. And I think that's a powerful way that Emily probably looked at Dante's Divine Comedy. Finally, at 3b, do you think that there is such a thing as gifts of death? And to what degree do you think maybe they help you to understand the gifts of life? I hope Emily's challenging you. Thank you.